Hello, everyone. Welcome to this shorter version of the Shelley Show, where we ask very one simple question: what is artificial intelligence? In this episode, what we do is, or in this series, what we do is we bring in people from different walks of life and ask them to come on show and share their point of view on what is artificial intelligence. Now, why are we doing this show? The reason behind that is that when you go to Twitter, you find artificial intelligence is seen as robots walking around. So what we thought was let's bring in leaders from the industry and a common man to understand what their point of view of artificial intelligence is. So if you've got a point of view, if you think what is artificial intelligence and you want to share it with the rest of the world, then please send me a message and I will bring you in like I did the guest for today. So our guest for today is Paul Roberts. But before I get him in, I would request you to please retweet this video and like it, share it on various social media so people can learn from Paul's point of view. So let me bring in Paul Roberts. Drum rolls. Hi, Paul. How are you?
Hello. Very well, thank you. And yourself?
Very good, very good. Welcome to the Shelley Show.
Thank you very much. Delighted to be here.
Thank you. So, Paul, for the benefit of our audience, please introduce yourself.
Okay, yeah. So I'm Paul Roberts. I'm the CEO and co-founder of My Customer Lens, which is a real-time feedback aggregation platform. So we help professional services firms at the minute to protect and grow their revenues by making faster, more informed, client-led decisions. So I got to this place. My background is data analytics, customer experience. Couple of quick career highlights. I was part of the founding team at MB&A Europe back in the day. I was in a failed dot-com startup back in 2000, if you remember those. And then I was also part of the customer revenue growth team at PwC in Australia. And it was actually while I was in Australia that I started seeing the problem that My Customer Lens now solves. What we found was, regardless of the company, regardless of the industry, businesses struggled to be customer centric, to deliver great customer experiences because they had disconnected data. So sales, marketing, product teams, management, call centers, complaints, they all had different sources of data about the customer and hence have different views about the needs and expectations they need to deliver on. And that's not a great way to run a customer centric company. So fast forward to today. I'm now living in Scotland, and along with my co-founder and CTO, Mike Evans, we're building My Customer Lens, which analyzes and reports on customer feedback in real time.
Good stuff. So, this particular episode, we ask a very simple question to our guests: what is artificial intelligence? So, in your
Mm.
point of view, what is artificial intelligence, Paul? Please share your thought.
Okay, cool. Well, for me, it's the opportunity to supplement human intelligence with computers by helping to process data in a faster, more consistent, more scalable way. And once you've got computers able to do that, you then free up people to do the fun stuff. So basically, you help people to spend less time crunching data and more time doing the so what. What does this mean for us? How do we take action? And there's also a business benefit to that too. So as well as helping people do the sort of the higher order work, the business benefits from competitive advantage. So it gets the ability to make faster, more informed decisions because it's got all this data coming through from a lot of different places. So what we typically see is that businesses have all these different disconnected data sources, as I talked about. People analyze them manually and they've all got sort of different views. AI enables you to bring all of that together and start connecting up different data sources, deal with unstructured feedback, and then process it much faster. And therefore, the business works at a much faster pace, can start to find that competitive advantage. And as we've seen with the pandemic over the last year, businesses are all now scrambling. Customer needs, expectations have all changed, and they've got to try and evolve their offer. And that's the perfect use case for AI to come in and go, well, actually, that can make sense of that and allow decision makers to get on with steering the business.
Good stuff. Okay, so examples. Any use
Yeah.
case that comes to mind when you're talking AI, apart from yours?
Okay. Well, I think there's a couple of things that sort of strike me. So you've got, Tesla is a good example in terms of how it's using AI to just be totally, just to be constantly scanning, processing data. And what it does is it gives drivers the right signals at the right time. So rather than overwhelming drivers with, here's all the things that could be happening, here's what's coming, here's what's behind you, in front of you, it kind of makes sense of all of that and just pops up the key bits at the key times in order to help the driver drive better, drive smarter. Obviously, it's getting to a place where then you can sort of take more and more decisions off the driver. But that for me is just a good indicator of how it can deal with vast quantities of data, but not to kind of overwhelm people, but actually just to summarize and go, here's the right information at the right time.
Good stuff. Any other use case that you want to share?
Well, probably one that's closer to home without it being a sales pitch from my customer lens, but text analysis and neuro-linguistic programming. And what we find, my passion is all about customer experience, how you better understand your customers. And there is so much rich data inside sort of verbatim comments and unstructured feedback, and businesses are now dealing with more and more unstructured feedback. I think estimates up to 80% of business data now is unstructured. And you've got to be able to make sense of that. And when humans come in and they're sort of trying to go through things, and I hear all sorts of horrible use cases about people sitting there doing 5-bar gates in notebooks, just trying to figure out what are the common themes and trends so that they can get on with it. It's not about necessarily having data analysis in a central point with trained data scientists doing it. It's about how you bring the ability to analyze customer feedback and text into the front line, into the people that are actually working with customers every day. And I think that's where it gets really interesting, because you can actually start to say, right, well, what are the key themes in the text, and what are customers talking about? How is it making them feel? How might it drive behavior? And therefore, people on the front line can make decisions about that and move forward. So it's not about having this great data center in the middle of the building. It's about bringing it to the front line and going, actually, we can make sense of this unstructured data, whether it's verbal, whether it's text, as it's coming in, and therefore help the customer better.
So, how does prediction play a role in AI? What do you see that?
So for me, the prediction comes in with the ability to start sort of saying, right, well, based on what we're seeing, here's how we think the customer is feeling, here's what they need, here's what they're talking about. We're starting to pick up signals here that suggest they're talking about these types of products, or they have this particular need, and therefore this is the conversation you might need to have with them. So for me, the interesting bit about predictive analytics is less about saying, because somebody's done this, they are going to churn, they're more likely to churn. I think that's a fairly old use case. I think it's that in the moment predictive have been able to say, based on what we're hearing right now and based on what other customers are telling us right now, this is what we think you need to talk about next. This is the offer you need to put in front of them. This is the need you need to uncover. Maybe ask a question here because this might be what's really bugging them. And I think that's where the predictive analysis for me gets really interesting. It's not sort of about the sort of the quant predictions. They're useful, but that's sort of old news. For me, it's that predictive analysis within unstructured data that sort of gives you the best next conversation to have, the next best offer to have, the next best communication to have, that just sort of keeps things moving forwards.
A particular question which comes to mind is linking the sentiment of customers with the bottom line. Um,
Yeah,
have you guys ever thought about doing that? And I asked that in my last session as well,
yeah.
because I think that's something very interesting. So when you see people's satisfaction going down, how many days or after how long does that impact your bottom line or your P&L?
Yeah, I think it's a fascinating one. It's one that we've dabbled with. We're still a startup, so that's something we're kind of building into the product rather than having a use case right now. But where we've done a couple of pilots around that, so for example, in the leisure industry, we just looked at sort of customer satisfaction comments, then we linked them to customer churn numbers, and then we linked them to sort of footfall, and we started to see that when, really simple example, but when sort of there was more commentary about the cleanliness of the swimming pool and things like that, we then start to see a dip in footfall and the number of people coming to the swimming pool. And of course, that then had a knock-on effect into revenues and everything else. Bottom line impact was they had to then increase cost, increase short term around sort of changing cleaning and the rest of it to boost that back up, and then you start to see footfall going back up. But it's really interesting because you kind of get that direct feedback, but then you also get the sort of the public commentary, where obviously more and more consumers now want to share their feedback in public rather than directly with the business. And so actually being able to link that through to bottom line via sort of the revenue streams that are coming through. We're doing something similar, a couple of pilots within professional services as well, where you just start to look at kind of the feedback through a client project. So rather than typically asking for feedback at the end, you sort of ask for expectations up front. Why did you choose us? What do you want to get out of this project? And then you monitor it all the way through. And as a result, you then start to get a better track about whether or not they will come back and hire you again, because it's all about share of wallet, and that's where the bottom line hits there. And then another interesting one is we're starting to see the same use case emerging within employees as well. So actually how you understand the culture within your organization, exec to its promises match reality, starts to drive employee churn. And of course, that has a massive hit on the bottom line, because your operational capacity goes down when you lose somebody, plus you have the additional costs of rehiring them and all the rest of it. So actually, we're seeing that sort of link between feedback and operational data and bottom line on both the customer and the employee side.
Good stuff. Thank you. Actually, this was one of the questions that was asked to me on customer satisfaction by one of my clients a few years ago. But
Mhm.
anyways, you're trying to get that answer, which is great.
Yeah,
So
yeah, absolutely.
thank you very much for joining the show.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me. Been great to chat to you.
Good stuff. Thank you. So, guys, that was Paul, all the way from the UK, Scotland, indeed, and his experience and his knowledge on what is AI. If you've got a point of view and you think you want to share that with the world, then please send me a direct message, and I will bring you here to share what is artificial intelligence. Okay, guys, if you like this episode, please retweet it if you're watching it on Twitter and like it. If you're watching it on YouTube, please take the link, share it around, share it with as many people as possible on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, any other social media form, so that more and more people can learn from what Paul had to say and what he thought was artificial intelligence. So thank you very much, and thank you for joining me. See you later.